So firstly, let me say thank you to have Joel in the room. Thank you very much, Joel, for coming along tonight. Now, I would assume that most people in the room would have an understanding of who Joel Salatin is and have an understanding of what he does at Polyface Farms. But just in case there's some people in the audience that aren't familiar, would you be able to give us a brief overview of what you do at the farm and why your farming approach is different?
Okay, well, we're in Virginia's Shenandoah Valley, which is 80 miles long, 20 miles wide, in Virginia, which is on the east coast of the U.S. We're about 3 miles inland from the Atlantic Ocean, and the farm has a lot of elevation differences. We're really on the edge of the valley there, so we're 550 acres, and we have 1,000 feet of elevation difference. Oh, meters. 300 meters of elevation difference on the farm. Is there that much elevation difference in Australia?
No, in most parts, no.
Nice parts, no. And our family came in 1961. I was just a little chumper then, and the goal was to farm. But the farm was in extremely eroded conditions. This was the area. In fact, the reaper, Cyrus McCormick's reaper, was invented in a blacksmith shop in 1837, just 10 miles from our house. Our house was built in 1750. So history there goes back a little ways, and or at least the European history. And so anyway, we came to the farm in 61, and it was terribly eroded. There was so little soil, there wasn't even enough soil to hold in electric fence stakes. So we had to pour concrete in old car tires, and Dad would stack them up on a tractor platform and would drive slowly, and he pushed a half-inch pipe straight up and down and one on a little angle, and then my brother and I, we were little kids, and we could heave these off, and he'd go along and stick electric fence stakes in them, because there wasn't enough soil to hold up electric fence stakes.
With that soil problem, obviously, you can't have agriculture without decent topsoil. That's pretty basic biology. So how did you go about developing improving that soil?
Yeah, so early on there, Dad was a visionary, way ahead of his time. We always said he was organic before Rachel Carson wrote Silent Spring, and he was actually an economist by training, and he realized that the chemical approach to the soil and to farming, the chemical approach was a dead end. You can't chemical your way into productivity long haul. And so very simple rules, nature tends toward perennials instead of annuals. Nature runs on real-time carbon cycling on site, not transported distances. Animals move, they don't stay in one place, and they certainly aren't all piled up in one house. Which means then that shelter and infrastructure has to be portable infrastructure instead of stationary infrastructure, and as a small farm, you have to increase your margin because you can't beat the commodity world on economies of scale, on tiny little margins. So there were just some very basic principles that we operated on, and so we began rotating cows. He developed a portable shade mobile. We were fiends on organic matter. I mean, if there were corn cobs in the area, or wood chips, or Christmas tree chips, or wood tailings from a sawmill, anything, anywhere there was carbon, we were bringing it in and shoveling it out, spreading it. Walnut hulls, whatever we could get a hold of, and then multi-speciation. And so today we raise. Everything's on pasture. We raise salad bar beef, pig-orator pork, pastured turkeys, forage-based rabbits, and pastured chickens, from turkeys to meat birds to layers. And we service about 5,000 urban customers, and about 50 restaurants, and probably 1,000 families in an on-farm store. So it's not a backyard operation. We've been very blessed.
And I've read before that You don't distribute nationally or internationally. How far do you distribute your produce?
We go as far as 4 hours. And the reason we picked 4 hours, and I wouldn't have a problem with somebody that wants to do it smaller or longer, whatever. But we define 4 hours because that's as far as you can go and come in a day. And we wanted our distribution area to be such that our customers could not give an excuse for not coming and visiting the farm once a year or whatever. And so that 4 hour round trip, in other words, all of our customers can come and visit the farm and get home in a day. So you don't have to spend the day, you don't have to buy a hotel room, you can do that in a day.
That sounds fairly romantic, the notion of having all your chooks and rabbits and beef, roaming the paddocks. And it must make you feel quite comforted by the process that you've got going there, and you're quite confident it's working right. Do you ever walk through the supermarket aisle and see something like this? And you'd be very familiar with this. Farmwood chicken jugglers, bite-sized pieces of chicken, chopped, shaped and coated with a crunchy golden crumb. I believe these can be cooked in a microwave. So when you see food like this, after seeing, your...
Food?
Well, exactly right. Food, as Michael says, food replacement items or something along those lines. What are your thoughts when you see something like that?
Well, what my thoughts are is that chicken nuggets in the shape of Dino's the dinosaur is not a muscle group on a chicken. I mean, it doesn't exist. And of course, the way they make this is the ingredients are probably unpronounceable. There's ingredients. There got to be ingredients on here, aren't there? There aren't any ingredients. Well, I don't know what it's got in it then. Anyway,
dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets.
Yeah, we're the first generation we're the first culture in history that routinely eats things that are unrecognizable in their natural state. And
people are quite used to that. Yeah, generations are quite used to that now.
Right, it is. And you know what? There's a real spiritual ramification here because, this doesn't look like a living thing. And we have a whole culture now thinking that we can actually live without something being sacrificed. And that disconnect from the biological world creates a real breakdown in common sense and I would say even our own community social viewing of each other, that how we make each other live is by sacrificing ourselves for each other. This is a good place to make that point. And I think that we live in this culture now where we don't think about that life, death, decomposition, regeneration, life, death, decomposition, regeneration cycle. And so it jaundices our view toward life. I mean, as if we're going to be so technologically advanced with things like this that we can pull the plug on the visceral participation in food that has created common sense and integrity of life, throughout history. When I look at this, you got this chicken here, a happy, smiley face chicken. The chickens that are in these nuggets are not happy, smiley face chicken like this chicken down here. They're, 10,000 crammed in a football-sized building, breathing in fecal particulate that makes abrasions in their mucous membranes so that the fecal particulate can come in and make wounds in their tender mucous membrane so that the salmonella and the E. coli and stuff can actually penetrate right into their bloodstream. And this is the first time we've been able to do this. We've never done this before. And we can keep them alive with, of course, antibiotics, which
Yeah.
then make mutated diseases that then show up as C. diff and MRSA and things like that in our hospitals. And, you know, we get to have major pathogen outbreaks.
And it's interesting you say that, because that's going to lead, you've led into my next question perfectly, Joel. You know, there's enough information. We know these food production systems are flawed. That's a giveaway. Everyone got raffle tickets for that tonight? There's enough information, you know, on the internet that you know the current, you know, the mega agricultural system is all economically driven. Do you think that there is a possibility for, in the future, for a lot of these production systems to be more triple bottom line focused, which for those that don't know, triple bottom line has people, planet, profit involved in the production as a concept. Do you think in the future the triple bottom line approach might be more applicable?
Well, it can be. One of our problems is that in our Western accounting systems, we don't have a way to measure anything except today's profitability today. I mean, you know, when you think about it, everything that you and I are is dependent on a 3 trillion member internal bacterial community. You know, we're not very sterile. And on every double handful of healthy soil has more beings in it than there are people on the face of the earth. So you think about that internal community and that soil community, you know, and they're having school board meetings and elections and, you know, whatever else.
And Joel Salatin talks.
Yeah, that's right. All sorts of things going on down there. You know, this invisible community of beings completely supports everything that we see, and yet it never makes it onto a balance sheet. You know, when's the last time you went and presented a business plan to a banker, and the banker said, this is a great business plan. In fact, I think I want to be your partner because we're going to be millionaires. But I've got one question before I sign the paper. What's this going to do to the azotobacter bacteria and the mycorrhizae and the gibberellins? What's this going to do to those things, you know? And so here we are, we're all sitting here, and we're completely and utterly dependent on this invisible world of beings, and we don't even think about it. You know, who thinks about it in the shower this morning? And so, you know, who knows at what penetration this invisible world needs to exercise its importance in our lives, whether it's by sickness or soil loss or lack of water retentive capacity, as all these beings get washed out to sea and drown because there's no soil to hold them and no organic matter for them to colonize on. You know, at what point does their absence show up, you know, in our culture to arrest our attention for us to realize, you know, maybe it does matter how we're treating those.
Well,
and when that happens, we'll start thinking about a triple bottom line. You know, history shows that we tend to not think about it until it hits us in the head with a 2x4.
Yeah, the human species, the smartest species on the planet, alongside being the dumbest. Okay, so your method of farming, obviously, it's changing the way people, other farmers approach their business. Could it truly feed the Western world? Like, is it truly scalable, as you say?
Oh, that's one of my favorite questions. The two most common questions I get are, can it feed the world? And are you really not just an elitist, you know, because the price is more? And so let's deal with the feed the world deal. First of all, for the first time in human history, we are throwing away half of human edible food. What people don't realize is that when we put everything in a box, it has to fit the box. And there are mountains of things that have a slight blemish, that are too long, too flat, too narrow, too whatever, that don't fit the box, that our ancestors would have happily eaten. And so, and they used to get eaten by animals, you know, chickens that were next to the kitchen. Today, they tend to get just landfilled. And so, so first of all, we're throwing away a lot of food. Second, there's a lot of unused land. Now, I don't know what the figures are here in Australia, but in the US, we have 40 million acres of lawn and 35 million acres housing and growing food for recreational horses. That's 75 million acres. That's enough land to feed the entire population of the US without a single farm. So fundamentally, what we've done is we've segregated our food system instead of integrating our food system. And while the segregated approach, has these great big farms over here instead of smaller integrated food niches, near where I am, it looks big and profound and sexy and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, it's actually just floating on cheap fuel. And the day fuel becomes more expensive, that segregated food system will collapse and become reintegrated like it's been for a long time. Now, it's true that our ancestors, agriculture, has done a lot of bad things. So as a farmer, I repent in sackcloth and ashes for all of the bad things that my ancestors have done. But never before in history have we had the redemptive capacity that's at our hands today. And so, for example, if we would, for example, take the petroleum that we're currently using to grow grain to feed factory animals or herbivores that aren't supposed to eat grain in the first place, if we move that soil in, for example, building ponds on high country and swales and valleys all around, suddenly we're going to hydrate the landscape instead of desertify the landscape, and suddenly we're going to be growing 5 times as much food as we ever thought possible. It's simply a reallocation of the bonanza of petroleum, but instead we're just squandering this petroleum into chemical fertilizers with a segregated food system that's desertifying the landscape, and it's a steady downhill spiral instead of humbly appreciating the bonanza of petroleum and saying, okay, now let's turn this planet into an Eden instead of a Sodom and Gomorrah.
And it's interesting, that approach. I think too, when we get to that stage where petroleum is far too expensive, the potential of backyard food bowls is phenomenal.
Yeah.
What do you think about the approach of people having more useful gardens as opposed to ornamental and the lawns and all that stuff?
Sure. Well, it doesn't really take a whole lot more energy to grow a tree that makes fruit than a one that just makes blossoms. And I like pretty as much as anybody. Okay, I mean I like pretty, but I know I ain't pretty, but I like pretty. Okay, and the truth is that a beautiful beds of multi-speciated edible produce and fruits and strawberries and blackberries, whatever, is quite pretty in my opinion. And doesn't mean we don't have flowers, but we can plant our flowers around the edible plants. The truth is there are tremendous areas that we can use for food production. I mean, even if we just went to the medians of the expressways and fill the medians of the expressways with fruit trees instead of turf with batwing mowers. I mean, there's a lot of land in and amongst ourselves. I mean, I've seen patio gardens. I've seen beehives on the roofs of houses. The capacity of earth abundance to express itself viscerally near where we live is beyond our capacity to understand. And when we tap into that abundance, rather than seeing the planet as an enemy to be subdued and dominated and manipulated with a segregated mentality, it'll respond like a lover.
Oh, well, that sounds pretty good to me. Is this going to finish soon? You believe farmers need to have a direct link with their local consumers with your model. I was reading a book in the town I live in, Ballarat. It's an old gold mining town, and there used to be hundreds of little grocery stores. They still exist, physically still exist. Even tailors and all these little services there. But the grocery store is the thing that was a real frustration. There's a book about it to show how many there are in Ballarat, but they don't exist anymore. What happened?
Well, what happened was that that people abdicated their, first of all, people abdicated their domestic culinary understanding. It used to be that I'll be very sexist here on purpose, because all of our customers are women. Women take care of the things, and
yes, they do.
and it used to be that all of our customers knew how to cut up a chicken. And just 30 years ago, you couldn't go to the supermarket and get a boneless. This didn't exist 30 years ago. I mean, this is an experiment in human history. Like, we're guinea pigs, and if you wanted this, you had to go and get a chicken, take a knife, and cut it out, and you saw something that looked like a chicken, and you realized this thing was alive once, and now it's dead, and it's given its life for me. Thank you. You have that. But what happened was, we as Western cultures, we essentially bought the idea that we could abdicate this visceral participatory thing in this ecological umbilical, and we could subcontract it out to global corporate interests that would shave a couple of cents off of it, and a lot of it with government subsidies and special concessionary tidbits dribbled out by the food extortionists, otherwise known as food safety bureaucrats, and that created prejudicial pricing against small retailers and local food systems. And so what happened was that with the abdication of responsibility on the one hand, and the filling of that responsibility on the part of government corporate agendas, we have gradually, our liberty has become our enslavement, to where we are now enslaved to a system that doesn't have our best interests at heart, and we're trading, we're trading the equity of our grandchildren today for a life of celebrity ease and soccer and whatever. How many people say, well, I don't have time to cook, because I got to take the kids 3 hours to a soccer tournament, and where we are is the culmination of billions and billions of decisions that we have made as a culture, and where we will be in 20 years is the culmination of the billions and billions of individual decisions we will make between now and then.
Another great segue there. You just said individuals. I just want to take this opportunity here to I have a show of hands in the audience tonight. Put your hands up if you consume food. Right, okay. Can you do that again? No, just checking. Okay, so we're all food consumers.
Yeah.
And like you were just saying then, billions and billions of choices. There's a lot of people that they're asking themselves the question, but what can I do? And I get to ask that question. I always just say, buy my book. So when you get posed that question for somebody sitting in the audience here, I want to go away from tonight and say, what can I do? What do you say to that?
Oh, sure. Well, the first thing is get in your kitchen. The most profound change you can make in the food system is to get in your kitchen and begin preparing, preserving, and packaging your own food. And you can either, the second thing, of course, is to procure it with knowledge, procure it with an informed, participate in food with informed consent, you know. And that means that you're either going to grow it, you're going to go to farmer's market, you're going to go, you know, turn off the TV. You know, nobody needs a TV, and you know, the first thing to do to be creative and. Okay. Okay. Well, anyway, you can, you know, you can make time for yourself. Okay. All of us has 24 hours a day, each one of us, and it just depends on how we want to allocate that. And so, you know, so we can participate in that food system. But the getting in your kitchen, I think, where you start getting unprocessed raw stuff, because that cuts out all of this power of the food system, because this drives the production model, which is to be as cheap and unnatural as possible, and then that drives concessionary government policy, that drives special perks that push innovative alternatives out, encourages an antibiotic-dependent food system, you know, a pharmaceutically dependent food system. So if you pull the plug on processed food, just that is huge. I would go so far as to say you cannot have a culture of integrity until you restore domestic integrity. Ultimately, the culture, again, is a physical manifestation of how strong our domestic lives are. And it used to be that what was important in life happened in the home, and that then fueled the value system, the physical energy, you know, the mental convictions, all that was an outgrowth of the home. Today, home has pretty much become a pit stop between everything else that's important in life that happens out there. And so once we redomesticate our lives and recenter our lives to the family, to the home, and to that most basic of relational integrity, then those decisions begin affecting, you know, the rest of the things that we do. And I think that as we restore our domestic larder, you know, we don't store stuff in the house anymore. I mean, we don't even have a larder anymore. And this year, fascinating, when I picked up your book and I said, yes, another guy that's using the word larder, because this year, as we were looking at, you know, how can we help our 5,000 families that buy our stuff? How can we help them do better, you know, move forward? We launched the campaign of the food larder this year at Polyphase. And we started giving big discounts for volume buying and volume packaging to encourage people to buy a freezer and can and dehydrate and preserve and fix ahead and, you know, cook large volumes with leftovers for lunches at work. You know, that's the kind of stuff that you start pulling off all of those dollars from the food system that we have, and you're going to see a fundamental change in how the entire food system is structured.
And I think too that's it's a problem of Western culture necessarily. That the lifestyle of say a regional Spanish town, everything happens around the family, and there's one person that puts a lot of effort into acquiring the food, preparing it, canning it, preserving it, etc., and the other person might go out and earn the money. That's an approach that we have in our family house now, and which involves me doing all the washing and dry hanging out clothes, which I just love doing. Do you think that change or that lifestyle of having somebody in the house, like the old days of being able to acquire food and live with less money and less things to do, like the soccer and the plasma TV, do you think that's a viable approach in 2012?
Well, I do. I think that we've exchanged what is most fundamentally, viscerally satisfying. We've exchanged it for a cheap alternative. I mean, we've decided that it's more awesome to know about the latest belly button piercing and celebrity, pop culture than it is to watch a tomato grow from a seed and make succulent tomatoes that drool, that you bite into them and they drip down your arms, That's so much. Why is it? Why is it that isn't cool?
Yeah, iPads.
Yeah, but you see what I'm saying? And instead, what we do is we go to the supermarket and buy tomatoes that are basically cardboard because they've been, bred now as cultivars, to take 3,000 miles of bouncing in the back of a truck to come to the supermarket, and so our kids don't like vegetables because they don't have any taste and they don't have any texture, they don't have any nutrition, and they're junk, and they're bored with life, and so they get People magazine and reality TV, and I look at this stuff. Are people really that bored in our culture? My goodness, come out and grow a tomato.
Yep, and look, I tell you what, I made the move a couple of years ago to have that lifestyle, and my girls now in summer, they attack my cherry tomatoes.
Oh yeah.
And they've got them dribbling down their t-shirts, the seeds, and they absolutely love it. I don't even have to cook the food for them anymore.
That's right.
It's so much easier.
Yeah.
My eldest girl, she can't stand carrots cooked. She wants them just out of the soil.
Yeah, you say it's 6 o'clock, time to go graze, kids.
Yeah, exactly right. Go out in the backyard. It's feeding time. I think I heard a chook lay an egg. Knock yourself out.
Have you gotten to electric fence paddocks yet?
Yeah, I rotate them. Rotate them. We rest the paddocks. Yeah. Okay, so look, I think we're almost up to some question and answers time. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll do that then. Yeah. Excellent. Okay. So beautiful. Anyone in the audience now? Let's have a couple of questions here. Be interested? Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry. What was your name?
Will.
Will.
Yeah. My question is, can you say that about how do we? Sorry. Yeah. So my question is, God, it's weird having my voice on the speaker. Very disconcerting. Given that we do live in a world now where we don't necessarily have the knowledge that maybe our grandparents had when it comes to food preparation. Because I can think of when I was growing up, my parents basically from the UK, and we were given, food from the supermarket. So how do I learn the skills that my grandparents and my great grandparents had that is now lost effectively because I haven't had that education? Where do we go to find to rediscover how to can?
Yeah, right. Well, first, buy Rohan's book. And I think that it hasn't been lost overnight, and it won't be discovered overnight. But you have to start somewhere. You crawl before you walk, and so don't worry about all the stuff that you don't know. Start with where you do know, and just start going. I mean, we have customers all the time. I'm afraid to can. Isn't that like a bomb in your kitchen that will blow up? That sort of thing. And the truth is, this information is out here. So you need to surround yourself with a support group, with friends who are jazzed up about reconnecting to this ecological umbilical. And as you do that, you'll have conversations. You'll get together, instead of ordering pizza in to watch a flat screen TV movie, you'll get together to, make kefir from raw milk, or whatever. And you'll, or better yet, you'll get together and conspire on how to have a cow in town so you can have raw milk. But it starts one piece at a time. And don't think you've got to learn it all. You're young, you got time. Just start being start leveraging faithfully the information that you currently have. And movement creates movement. We never get dropped a whole clump of knowledge or opportunity out of space at one time. What it is, it's a discovery process. And we take one step, we take one step, we take one step. And so I think as you put yourself in the way of that information, you'll be surprised how fast it'll come in.
And that's so true what Joel's saying. I have a theory about food communities, personal food communities. I get asked a lot out in the town that I live, why don't you come and join our community groups? And I say, could you take minutes? Anything that takes minutes and is organised, to me, I'm very wary of, but I'm very, very concerned with developing a food community. And that's just friends and family, people that care about where their food comes from. And then we always do swaps and trades, and I'm coming up with an idea now to get a bit of a family and friends collaboration to rent some land off a farmer friend, fence it off, and we'll run our chooks Joel's way, and that'll feed, say, 20 people of chickens. So we take purchasing chickens from the supermarket out of the equation. So that's about developing the food community. And the other thing I wanted to make as well, I started with very, very minimal knowledge. And I have to say that Google has been very friendly to me. Okay, have we got any other further questions there? Yes, that lady up there? Just wait for the mic. Don't start talking like this, but no one can hear you.
Thanks. My question is actually about supermarkets, and I'd just be interested to know what your take is on when big supermarket chains get in on the act of supplying free-range meat or free-range eggs and things like that. And as consumers, how far do we interrogate that, or do we see that as a sign of progress and sort of welcome it?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm not a fan of supermarkets. I think that whole model is predicated on ignorance and distance between field and fork. And so I would suggest that supermarkets should be treated like some sort of a bad addiction. And we should just attempt to not go there, period. Which means, because it's fundamentally a centralized, ignorance-based, opaque system. And I don't know how you fix that, okay? And so, well, I think I know how you don't fix it within the system. You fix it outside the system. And so what I suggest to people is build their own food communities, make their own food relationships, and there are some really cool things happening. One of the neatest, I think, are electronically aggregated farmers markets that are using the power of the internet with electronic shopping carts to create interfaces, food interfaces, locally without farmers having to leave their farm, and with consumers being able to see everything that's available in one quick glance, and all the inventory that's available in one quick glance. And then the distributor becomes one bus or truck or something that takes a weekly sachet around the farms and then takes it to a distribution spot. Everybody meets it right there. It's all pre-sold. There's no speculative sales. It's extremely efficient. There's no cashier, no bricks, no mortar, no building, no heat bill, no air conditioning bill, no nothing. And these are essentially electronic interfaces that are creating these local interfaces. And we've essentially become one now because we work with several neighbor farms to offer everything from cheese to apple juice to vegetables to specialty fruit to mushrooms to our poultry, turkey, beef, and suddenly you have essentially a localized rolling supermarket with economies of scale because you're aggregating on a local level. And I love it when you take a technology like the internet that was developed for globalism and like a bunch of guerrillas, we co-opt that and it becomes the new way of localization. I love it when we take their thing and own it ourselves.
Any further questions? Just up here.
Hi, I'm Ben. I think everything we do economically and agriculturally is about efficiency, and supermarkets are a symptom of that, like the centralization and the disconnection. What you're talking about is a re-domestication and a reconnection. But I think that's very easy for a farmer to see the efficiency in growing your own vegetables, in the same way an accountant can't understand people not doing their own accounts. It's complicated. What are some of the ways you found people are able to believe in, or that you've found effective, in making them believing the abstract efficiency of growing their own vegetables?
I think the number one way to get people to buy into this is with an epiphanal aha product. And when you taste a pastured chicken, or you taste a true homegrown, compost-grown strawberry in season, local, it's not the same thing as something that's been shipped 1,000 miles and grown in a factory with chemicals. It's not the same thing. And so I think the fundamental buy-in is taste, texture, quality. Now, there are lots of empirical scientific studies now trying to document, the nutrient density, and those are coming in fabulously. I mean, the omega-3, omega-6 deal, the conjugated linoleic acid, polyunsaturated fats, the molybdenum, cobalt, boron of compost-grown vegetables. I mean, it's off the charts. Okay, so we're now seeing that empirical data come in, and it's becoming, wider and wider by the day as the chemical approach gets worse and worse, and our approach, stays. Actually, our approach is getting better because we're learning and doing better too, and building soil, and it takes a while to build soil. So those are the ways that we've found, to buy in, and truly, what happens is that when you buy unprocessed, and you take that, you turn off the TV or whatever, and you take the time in your kitchen to prepare it, you actually save way more money over this. Think about the supermarket. You walk in and you turn right, and there's produce, right? I suppose they're the same in Australia as they are in the U.S. You walk in the front door, you turn right, and it's produce. There's a little narrow bin of potatoes for 79 cents a pound, okay, 89 cents a pound. Go 2 aisles over, 3 aisles over, and there's 40 meters. I keep going to feet. There's 40 meters of freezer case with microwavable, boxed, pre-cut French fries. Go 3 more aisles over, and there's 40 meters of potato chips. The French fries are $1.89 a pound, and the potato chips are $4.99 a pound. Those two occupy, a magnitude of 200 times more square footage than the little bin of potatoes for 69 cents a pound that you can take home and put in your, put through your Cuisinart and and get your lard from the farmer that's making the pig and cook them in lard. You want good French fries, cook them in lard. I mean, that's the real deal. And
He's right.
And do it yourself, and you can do all that for about $1. We've swallowed this idea that processed, prepackaged, microwavable food is fundamentally less expensive than the other, and it's not. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen the movie Food Inc. And great movie, but the weakness in that movie is the family, if you recall, that goes to the Burger King and buys that $10 Burger King meal and then says they can't afford tomatoes and oranges. Well, you can come to our farm right now and buy 2 pounds of world-class grass-finished ground beef for $10, and there's more in a quarter pound of that nutrition than a $10 Burger King meal. So ultimately, people come when they embrace when they embrace this with their hearts.
An interesting point I'd like to make to answer that question as well, very, very briefly. There's two things that I found that turned me to the dark side or good side. The first being there is a spiritual satisfaction that you get by going back to those old techniques of taking care of your own food. That is the first thing, of raising something from a seed into a seedling, into a fully fledged plant that's feeding your family. The next thing that is a real turn on is seasonality of food. Now, people have probably heard the conversation of seasonality of food, but you go months and months and months without eating a tomato because you can't grow it because it's too cold. When you have that first tomato in summer, that is an unbelievably blissful experience. The next thing on top of that, just the cream on top, is the taste of that very first tomato is spectacular. And so, you know, having that approach as the thing that will turn you on to it, that's definitely big draw card for me. Okay, any other questions? I want some up the back. Oh, who's that bloke up the back there with his arm up, leaning on the? Yeah, get him. He looks dangerous.
You won't understand him though, Rohan. You need an interpreter.
Thanks, Rohan. You actually just mentioned it then, my question. Joel, the word taste that Rohan just put and said very large, that waiting for the peaches just around the corner. There's some here, there's some available, but just that first peach from the tree, the first peach bought from your local farmer from your farmer's market, that taste, one word, taste. Two questions. Can you describe why your food would taste better than anything commercially grown? I believe it would. It's not one of those weird questions. And second, do you think taste is not apparent as much as it is money, financial, is very, very more apparent, buying local, health benefit. But for some reason, we've lost this love of something that is so natural to us that tastes good. My partner's lips taste amazing. The first peach tastes amazing. The strawberry, a great potato. Have we lost that love of T-A-S-T-E, if I spelt that right?
Well, you know, the guys that engineer this stuff, and gals that engineer this stuff, they're very cognizant of the way our taste and you know the way our tongues work and you know the physical chemistry of taste. And so what happens is that when a person comes to our approach, if you will, unless there's a Monsanto plant in here, I'll assume people are on our side. When that happens, it does affect, you know, your level of expectation changes. I mean, I don't know how many times I've been to somebody's house or, you know, a restaurant, whatever, with somebody, you know, you're in a stuck situation where we just have to eat this, and you know, I mean, you don't want to be a food Nazi. I mean, you know, you want to be kind and congenial and not wear it on your sleeve, and it's just blah. I mean, once you've had a good grass-finished steak, the corn-fed stuff is just bleh. It's nothing. And so I think we have lost our taste, and I think a lot of our children don't know what it is, but that's why we have to introduce them to it. And you know, probably the number one thing to introduce them to is like pastured eggs and certainly, you know, compost grown berries are just, you know, just burst, and vegetables and produce. We had a lady come into to the farm store recently, and she had this little, you know, weazened, anemic little 6-year-old son, and he wouldn't eat it. She said, "I can't get him to eat anything." And so she got a dozen eggs. I mean, she said he won't eat it. He just doesn't eat. And you could tell he was, you know, not like he ought to be. She got this dozen eggs. She went home. She called us 2 days later, and he ate 6 eggs at a sitting. his body was craving it. This was nutrition, and his body was craving it. And so, we are, we're eating empty calories, and we have actually, I think, messed up our taste by so much of this, and we've got ground to pick up.
Okay, I think we could probably ask questions all night. How many more questions we want to go for? A couple more? Oh, okay, all right. Okay, let's go here.
I keep coming back. I'm like, yes, you'll get me eventually. Thank you for that. That was generous of you. So I just had a feeling from before when we were mingling and eating that it's possible that we're preaching to the converted in this room. And I was thinking, as you were speaking before, about farms and farmers. My grandparents had a big farm, and they farmed their own cattle and their own chickens, and my job was to cut off the feed, and we all had a line in the production of the chickens and stuff. But what they did commercially for a living was farming passion fruit. And they were poor, and I remembered them only a couple of weeks ago. I was thinking about them, and I said to my husband, I just realised it was in the 80s. My nana put her clothes through a wringer. Her bathroom had a dirt floor. She cooked everything in a wood-fired stove, not because it was cool and kind of homely, but because she couldn't friggin' afford a better stove. And I think, what can we do to help farmers? Because you're a charismatic man, you know how to sell your product locally. Farmers are not always known for their glib, their golden tongues and their ease of customer relations. It's really hard. It's a bit easier for them to maybe just sell their mass-produced one product to the supermarket chain who'll buy it for fuck all. And I just think, what can we do to help farmers find an audience for and make a buck, because it's really hard farming.
Well, most farmers are farming because they really don't like people. Most of them have a much better relationship with their John Deere tractor than their, anything else. So yeah, you're exactly right, and that's one reason why that's one reason I'm here in Australia, primarily talking to farmers to help them understand that they need to partner with marketers. The fact is that most successful businesses, all of the skills and gifts and talents to have a successful business, and a farm is a business, all the gifts and talents necessary to have a successful business don't all grow on the same pair of legs. A lot of businesses realize that, except farmers for some reason. And so I think that farmers need to, and farmers are unbelievably independent. I mean, they're the most independent. They don't want to. What's funny is they're independent of each other, but they're completely dependent on, the corporate, the commodity, undifferentiated food system. So, I think two things. One is that's why eaters, those of us that are buying from, and all of us, even farmers, we still buy from other farmers, right? Okay, so we don't buy our apple juice that we eat in our family. We don't buy it. We don't grow enough apples to do that. So we buy it from a neighbor's apple orchard. He's not a very good marketer, but he makes this fabulous apple juice. It's got an inch of sediment in the bottom, and in the winter when you guzzle 2 glasses, all of a sudden you realize, ooh, I just ate 6 apples, and it takes about 24 hours to work through that, But we're now selling, 2/3 of his apple juice through our buying group. There's a guy with a school bus that takes from about 40 farmers in half of Virginia and takes them into the city in this portable rolling general store concept. And the farmers can stay on the farm, and he uses his website to announce where he'll be, what office building he'll be when, and people come out on breaks and shop in the bus. It's an old school bus. Another group is an electronic aggregator called Relay Foods. They collaborate with about 100 farmers and service thousands of families once a week with essentially an electronic supermarket and aggregator. So I think that all of these societal evolutions take time, and what your grandma and grandpa saw at that time was it was extremely difficult, more difficult, to aggregate food because we didn't have the internet, we didn't have electronics, we didn't have this stuff. And today, democratization, I mean, if there's one thing the internet has brought, it is democratization of information and democratization of dissemination. And so now we can decentralize and democratize the aggregation and the marketing with integrity in the middle. And beyond that, I would simply say that farmers need to understand that they need to be savvy about this. And just like businesses start and fail all the time. And farmers need to be getting involved with the local theater to learn how to tell stories and be dramatic. And why don't we encourage farmers, to take public speaking courses and join Toastmasters? They have Toastmasters in Australia? Yeah. I mean, why don't we do that? No, we just, as a culture, we just assume that farmers are supposed to be, hillbilly redneck, trip over the transmission in the backyard, tobacco spitting hicks that can't put one word in front of another. And so when I talk to farmers, I say, guys, go get a suit and a tie and take a Toastmasters speaking course, and come on, if we want to be professionals in society, restore the Thomas Jeffersonian intellectual agrarian mystique, act like it, talk like it, look like it. Because we have the distinct privilege of being responsible for the lion's share of air, soil, and water in our cultures. And we should be the best of the best, not the dregs of the rest.
Very well. Well put. Just on that point, before we go to the next question, could I get any producers, farmers, growers, anybody like that to please stand up?
Do you need commercial or?
Oh, commercial, backyard. Yeah. All right, okay. So that's fantastic. I just want to give these guys a big round of applause. These are our growers. These are the people that support us. And when we do finish up here tonight, have a look at their faces and go hassle them. Go talk to them. And if you have a marketing background, go offer them some work. Okay, we've got time for one last question. One. Okay, one more question. Oh, this is really hard. I'll go you up the front here.
Hi. So you have spoken a lot tonight about growing your own food and making your own food. I think there's a large segment of people that will realistically not get into that, but they still want to make a difference and they still want to do the right thing. They want to eat sustainably and ethically correct. I just want to know if you have any ideas of how to engage that audience and how to address them and make sure you don't alienate them and involve them, I guess, in this food revolution.
Let me just say this. I wish that I could click my fingers and everything would be perfect and everybody could eat integrity food and all the farm animals would be treated well and tomato plants would be honored and revered. And, I wish I could click my fingers and all that would happen. But you can't. And we have to realize that it's only going to be as as honest as our degree of participation. And so I don't let people get off saying, I can't do this. I don't buy it. Because we choose, I mean, you know, how would you feel if you said, you know, I just don't have time to raise my kids? I just don't have time. I mean, I got to go to work. I got to read People magazine. I got to, you know, I got to watch reality TV or whatever, you know, or something really noble. You know, I've got to go, you know, distribute pamphlets in a refugee camp or something. Okay. I mean, pick whatever you want. But at the end of the day, we and nobody else is responsible for our 3 trillion member internal community. And if we abdicate responsibility and participation in that, we are making a statement, a very pregnant value statement about our world, about our participation in this ecological umbilical, and our allocation of time and resources. And people are going to take different, I mean, everybody's going to participate at a different level. But everybody, in my view, everybody should make a real simple goal of, for example, you know, cooking from scratch, knowing a farmer, taking our recreational entertainment budget for a year and finding the farm treasures in our community. Is that not as good as a scuba diving cruise on the Great Barrier Reef? I'm not saying you can't go to the Great Barrier Reef, but I am saying that if we are completely ignorant about our food and non-participatory about our food, then we deserve a food system that's no better than the Great Barrier Reef if nobody takes an interest in that. That's all I'm saying.
And that's, my response to that would be, my mum always used to say to me, no one's putting that food in your mouth anymore. And so my whole approach is I choose that food. I choose where that food's been purchased, how it was grown. And I think even for people that live on balconies, I have a friend of mine who was so proud to show me her balcony in Brunswick. Blew me away. She had a worm farm there. And, you know, she's got all these grand plans to grow some veg. She's not going to grow everything. But she shops at the local grocery store, the independent grocery store. She's connected with a lot of farmers. And so they're the little things that she can do. They're the choices that she can make. So I always believe we're free to make that choice. And I think saying that it is too hard or like you're saying, distancing and making it sound a little bit unachievable to people, I think it's a very, very hard issue to get around because I truly believe, like Joel, everyone at the end of the day has that choice. It's about what we choose to do with our time and the choices about food. So I think that's the last question now. So I'd just like to say thank you. It's been a great honour and privilege to be up here with Joel.
Thank you for having me.
And a big round of applause to Joel, please.